What is happening, everybody? Welcome to PitchCon 2022. This is our third year running PitchCon, and I couldn't be more excited. More excited for what's ahead. Sit tight for 44 hours of free baseball analysis and discussion from over 80 experts in the industry across 4 days, where I will be hosting this stream live for 11 straight hours for 4 straight days. It's absurd. This kind of event is just something that is a representation of the entire community as a whole. And I'm just so excited that we get to kick this off today. And it's all for a good cause, as well as we raise money for Feeding America. Half of everything we raise during this event will go straight to them. So if you're watching on Twitch, go to pitcherlist.com/pitchcon to contribute to the cause, and all the details for PitchCon is there. We also have a bevy of prizes for viewers to win, from many subscriptions to excellent baseball websites and a signed Tyler Glasnow baseball to the prize we only give out during this event, a lifetime pitcher list plus subscription. So we've only given away 2 of those before. We're looking forward to giving away the third. So make sure to sign up at the link at PitchCon. At the PitchCon page on the site, pitcherlist.com/PitchCon. There's a Google form where you can select what prizes you want to win. And keep in mind, we'll only be giving away prizes that hit the milestone we raise during PitchCon. So help us give away everything we have on display. It's for a fantastic cause in Feeding America. So again, all of the details of this event, of what is PitchCon, what's the schedule, who's presenting, what are the prizes, what is this about, how to watch it, how to contribute, all that stuff, it's at pitcherlist.com/PitchCon. And contributions toward our $10,000 goal can be made there. So let's fill up that bar as soon as we can. We might have a surprise or two if we're able to go past that $10,000 goal. All right, before we begin, I do want to thank some people involved with this event. First, of course, to all of our panelists and presenters. I really cannot thank you enough, not only for donating your time to this event, but also to help us create this incredible list of prizes that we have. It's truly generous. And again, just an unbelievable representation of this community as a whole. Just the fact that I started this in 2020 and instantly everyone said, oh, awesome, great, count me in. And now this is our third year doing this as it expands every single year. It's truly an amazing, amazing event. And really, thank you. It cannot exist without all of you. I also need to give a huge, huge shout out to Tyler Hatinga, who is the developer who made the pitcherlist.com/PitchCon page. He's amazing. He spent so many hours and tirelessly made this page, and there were some problems at the 11th hour out of his control that he got fixed. And no, he could not change how the form looks. So yes, I know the contribute form is a little bit weird. Might be weird to see the color of the text and stuff. We understand it's out of our control for the most part. But of course, everything we raise there is going straight to. So hopefully that's okay with you guys. But yeah, he put so many hours into this, and really this would not be possible without him. And lastly, I have to thank all of you right now watching this event for participating and being a part of PitchCon. This is a community event, and all of you breathe life into it. So thank you so much for being here and supporting the cause. But all right, let's get into it. Let's start PitchCon 2022. And as is tradition, we start it with a round table. So we're going to bring in Myles Nelson. Ha! There goes my timer that I need to turn off so that does not freak out on me. Okay, we're going to bring in Myles Nelson. Hey, Myles.
Hello.
Welcome.
How are you doing?
How you doing?
Hey, I asked you first.
I can't hear you because I muted the site, but that's all right. There we go. I can hear you now.
Yeah, great, Nick.
This is fine. Everything is smooth. So we are going to bring you in. Tell us about yourself, Myles, just for a moment.
Oh God, I didn't prepare anything. I'm Myles Nelson. I do stuff here. I have a presentation tonight in conjunction with Ben Brown, and yeah, you can follow me right there on Twitter.
Sweet. We have a couple other people joining right now. We have Daniel Port.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Hey Nick. Hey Myles.
So yeah, Daniel, tell us about yourself, man.
So I wear a couple different hats over at PitcherList. I'm the community manager there, and then I also do writings for the Going Deep section, and we'll be helping with the newsletter and doing a bunch of different things around the site.
Fantastic. So Daniel, yeah, OLR guys, check it out. There's going to be a presentation on it. You are going to want to watch that one. We have Dave Swan here. Dave, good to see you.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
How you doing? Yeah, Dave. So what do you do here at Pitcher List?
So one of the fantasy managers, but kind of like Daniel, a whole bunch of hats from DFS, the fantasy content to batter's box, the reliever stuff, kind of a little bit of everything.
And I remember actually, I think first meeting you was at First Pitch Florida 2 years ago.
Yeah, First Pitch.
Wearing an SB Streamer shirt, so that was awesome to see. And thanks for being here today. And last but certainly not least, Scott Chu, the legend himself, is here. Good to see you, Scott.
Hey. Glad to be here.
So yeah, Scott, tell us about yourself, man.
Yeah, so I've been at Pitcher List for a couple years now. I am the manager for the Going Deep section, which is really cool, with 2 other guys. And I also do the Hacks and Jacks podcast. We just got nominated for an SWA award.
Yeah,
so that's
you
pretty
did.
Cool. Yeah, we got nominated for Best Baseball Podcast. I also will be taking over the hitter list this year. So I'll just be doing a lot of hitter stuff.
Can't wait.
So when you come to Pitcher List, the first thing you think is, where's the hitter stuff? That's me. I'm your guy.
That's exactly right. 100% right. But all right, guys, thank you so much for being a part of this. I'm going to leave it to you. And of course, everybody watching right now, you should be watching this at pitchlist.com/pitchcon. The stream is there. That's where you can contribute. You can see the entire schedule and sign up for prizes there. So you should go there right now. But all right, guys, thanks so much for being part of PitchCon. I'll let you have it.
Oh, great. Now that he's out of the way, we're all good. He's definitely seething back there. He's like, oh, that Myles. He's always out to get me. But so Nick is cool. Nick is an important part of the site, obviously, but there's someone else on this site that has done a lot of cool stuff recently. And, just as I want to make him as uncomfortable as I always can. Of course, he's not watching right now, but that's Alex Fast. Alex Fast was recently on MLB Tonight doing the top 10 catchers right now. So I thought, in honor of that, we would do our top 5 right now. And we don't have time for top 10. We got a lot of stuff to get through, only so much time. So we don't have commercial breaks or anything like that. So we're going to do top 5s. And I thought we would start, just like Scott said, you come to Pitcher List, you want the hitter analysis. Let's start with, what are your top 5 metrics that you look at when you're evaluating hitters? What is those go-to numbers? If we stripped away everything else off the Pitcher List player pages, off Fangraphs, off Baseball Reference, off Savant, wherever you go, what are the 5 metrics that I'm giving back to you? And since all of you are muted, I don't know who to start with. So whoever wants to unmute and go first, go for it.
Sure, I'll hop in. So what I like to do when I look at my stats, the ones I go to that are like my go-tos are like big overview stats. They give me where I want to go and what direction I want to look at when I'm looking at a pitcher. And then I'll get down to the nitty-gritty. So my number 1 is WRC plus. That just tells me right away, are you a good hitter? Where are you compared to everyone else in the league? And then I'll dive into, is it because they walk a lot? Is it because they hit a lot of home runs? Is it because, and just kind of dig in there. But that gives me right off the bat where I kind of want to start. And then I go down to barrel percent, see how what the quality of the contact that they're making is. And what I like to do is also be kind of efficient in that, whereas like all of these stats kind of tell me multiple things at once without me having to go necessarily look at things, because that tells me if they have a high barrel rate, they're probably having a high average exit velocity, they're probably having a high launch angle. So I'm getting an idea of those things too, that kind of thing. ISO again does power, but it also tells me what kind of power they're getting and how they're getting their hits. I like O-swing percent because it gives me a good insight into whether or not they chase a lot, whether or not they're really focusing on pitchers in the zone or not. And then finally, I like Z contact percent a lot because then it tells me if they are swinging mostly at pitchers in the zone, how often they're making contact. And it gives me a good idea again of their like sort of bat to ball skills. So those are kind of my big 5.
No surprise that the person who just wrote optimal location ratios wants to know if batters are swinging at pitches outside the zone, at pitches that are suboptimal locations for the hitter. For sure. Nice mug, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And nice shirt, of course. But yeah, I like that. I want to ask though, WRC plus instead of WOBA. I feel like both have their merits. I don't know anything about either of them, but you guys do. So just real quick show of hands, who's a WRC plus guy over WOBA? Okay. All right, then. I guess WOBA doesn't have as much merit in this argument as I thought. But hey,
yeah, no. So I loved WOBA. I think I've been working in so much with modeling and doing stuff like that. I've gotten in this place of like removing redundant sort of things, and they both give me like overviews of how good at hitters they are, and I just gravitate towards WRC plus simply because of the normalization. Otherwise, since at a glance I can be like, I know exactly what 120 WRC plus means. I don't have to go, well, what's the difference in a 360 and a 370 WOBA, that kind of thing. So it's just simply ease of use. I think WOBA is a great stat.
Fair enough. Dave, what about you?
Similar, a lot of the same similar metrics. WRC plus is probably one of the first ones. I use it for the same thing. It normalizes everyone at 100. It's an easy way to tell how much better someone is than the average. I think the difference with WOBA that I like is I'll use it more for like an in the season as like something that I can see where they're kind of rolling in windows, as opposed to like if I'm trying to see if someone's been lucky or unlucky as far as we like to be. Another stat that I think that is just kind of a quick like one hitter that I like to look at is OPS. I love the measurement of sort of like on base plus slugging. It just kind of tells you a really easy way if you're looking at somebody, if they're doing those two components at the time in one simple metric. But Daniel had pretty much the exact same ones I had OPS with the 5. I'll say that they're the same.
Okay. Well, hey, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Right.
And I want to point. So you mentioned you like looking at WOBA in season. You mentioned rolling windows. So are you looking at rolling charts when you're evaluating hitters?
Yeah, 100%. I do it a lot of. I mean, I think it's a pretty important thing. Some of us might be a little better than the other ones at this, but we'll get to that later.
So if someone wanted to learn how to evaluate hitters using rolling charts, is there someone on this roundtable here that might have a little bit of insight into that?
It's funny. I have a presentation with a similar name happening this
week.
What?
No
rolling
way.
Charts. Yeah, love rolling charts simply because the biggest thing with stats is that this is gonna sound dumb, but they're static, right? When you go to Fangraph's page, you get this flat number. So when you hear that, I'll just talk about a guy that I don't talk about much, Akil Baddoo, right? You hear that Akil Baddoo struck out 26.5% of the time last year. I love using strikeout rate and walk rate. All right. I love those stats. Those are two of the stats I want to talk about. And it's kind of cool to see them on Fangraphs or Baseball Reference or something like that. It's like 26.5%. What that doesn't tell you is how did that number happen? He did not strike out 26.5% of the time all year. In fact, he started out striking out 40-something% of the time. And the final number doesn't tell you that. He spent a month striking out 40% of the time. And you never know that just by looking at this. So that's why I love looking at strikeout and walk rates on a rolling chart. Tell me, did they get better as the season went on, or did they get worse? Did they have a lull? Does that lull line up with an injury or with some kind of, oh, hey, look, they said they did a swing change, and look, the rolling chart starts to change after that. It's usually not that simple of a cause and effect, but it's really important. I also use weighted runs created plus because normalization makes it really easy to talk about. I can talk about WRC plus with someone else who maybe doesn't know what it is, and I can explain it really fast. 100 is an average hitter, higher is better, right? So when I say 108, that means 8% better than the average hitter, right? When I say 82, I mean really, really bad, right? I mean 18% worse. Right? I can use the same guy, Akil Baddoo. He only had 4 games in AAA last year when he was, I think, rehabbing from an injury. He had a 67 WRC plus. On one hand, it's kind of cool to be able to see a normalized stat on such a small sample. On the other hand, and like it does tell you, he was really bad during that time, right? In those 4 games, he stunk. It tells you that really quickly, really easily. The last thing I like to look at, which is like the most basic of stats, I want to look at plate appearances. I want to look at plate appearances and games played because one thing that's really easy to do, and I especially like to look at it over time. One thing I really like to do is see how players' roles change. One of the quickest ways to get an idea of a guy's role is not to look at his splits. It's to look at his playing time. When does he actually play, right? Like one quick thing you can do on Fangraphs is go to the game log and then like go to change the dates, and it puts a dot on every date that this person appeared, right? So I can often find platoon players just by looking at that and seeing dots mixed out throughout the week, right? That quickly tells me they were platooning this guy somehow. And I don't know if it was for defensive replacement. I don't know if it was for lefty righty. I don't know what it was, but I can see that that's happening. I can bring up the same guy again, but Akil Baddoo. His dots change throughout the year. I'm using one player because I love talking about him. And also it makes sense of like how you put all this stuff together. His final game total is like 120 something, but he was also injured and he started out as a part-time player getting several days off a week and he ends up as a full-time player. I want to see the plate appearances to know, okay, let's say that happens to him again, right? That's a realistic thing. That's the worry that he platoons. What does that look like when it happens again? Only way I know, I look at the games played and the plate appearances. That's what I can expect if he platoons, and that's what I need to plan for in my draft.
So I just want to know, did you just use all of the Akil Badu content that you have for your presentation? Like,
just
are you
wait till we
going
get
to
to pictures, baby.
Well, and Scott, I just wanted to bring up one thing I love about and I'm sure you'll talk about this or something in your presentation, but with the rolling charts, that's really cool. Is I feel like we don't talk enough about, like, we talk about sample sizes a lot, but we don't talk about when they stabilize, and I always feel like the rolling charts are so nice for that, because you can start to see where it's going up and down, up and down, up and down, and suddenly starts going into like a little, and you're suddenly go, they figured something out, like something stabilized in what they're doing. And I think that's you see patterns, it's just one of those things that we don't talk enough about, providing context to statistics. And I think those do a really nice job of them. I actually use a few in my my presentation as well. So
you
I
should.
like them a lot.
That's the beauty of them. That's the context.
Yeah.
Talk about stabilizing after 50 plate appearances. Like, generally, yes. But there's so much more to the story. And the rolling charts, even after a stat has stabilized, continue to move. And that's the important thing. Those are the patterns that Port's talking about. You start to see patterns. And there's patterns you start to look for. I'll obviously talk about it a lot as well.
Right.
That's why I love to look at them. And changing the stat is important too. Look at slugging, look at K percent, look at walk percent, look at, it's going to start you with expected WOBA, which is a really cool stat. But like, there's so much more context to find. So use those rolling charts.
So obviously people come here for hitter analysis, all that hitter content. I guess, this is called PitchCon. We should talk about pitchers a little bit. I know we don't have the pitching guy here, the pitcher listing dude, whatever his name is, whatever he goes by, but we can't talk about how we evaluate pitchers, because I'll tell you my top 5 metrics for evaluating pitchers. It's the list, and then Rick Graham's list. That's 2. I guess K- walk percent, and then I go and I sort, and I'm like, oh, that guy's a good pitcher, and I have no idea how many innings he pitched. So those are my ways of evaluating pitchers. But what are your top 5 metrics? What do you look at? What are the numbers that you go to? Dave, we'll go to you.
Right. So a pitcher list, one of the first things we look at is CSW. It's an easy way to tell who's picking up Ks, or not Ks, but strikes, right? Like, if you want to be a pitcher, picking up strikes is invaluable, to lead you down the path of getting everything else done. Probably a stat that I really like looking if they're, is just ground ball rates. It's something for a pitcher that, right, they're getting their out somewhere, and a ground ball is the best way to get, batters out. You're going to have a lot more better luck that way if you're doing things. Another metric that we have to look at is Fastball Velo. Right. Like, for me, it's very important. It's one of those little ticks that if I see someone's not throwing a very fast fastball, like, I need a lot else for it to go right. But otherwise, Fastball Velo to me is something that it's just like a tick that puts it in like a good spot. Mm-hmm. You said K- walk rate, which I think is one of the best, for stabilizing right away. It should be like that pinnacle first thing you glance at. I'm going to throw it over to somebody else that's coming up. Something that aggregates all their stats together. My guy, Carlos Marcano, has a really nice metric called Specs, which he's up for that FSWA award. He's going to win it, in my opinion. And I know he's got something going on. I think Saturday is his presentation.
Saturday, I believe, at 1:00 Eastern.
Right. And I think people really need to take a look at that, because it's aggregating, the FIP, the Sierra, and all those things, as far as, like, they all kind of do different things. Where, like, FIP is really good in season and Sierra is really good for predicting next year. So I think he does a really great job of piecing that all together and making it like, an easy way to evaluate a pitcher.
I love that. Obviously, this being pitcher list, you think, people know a thing or two about evaluating pitchers. Right. I love that in the last few years, we've had CSW as well as Specs both coming out of here, and really, really interesting stuff. Helped me learn a lot about pitching and how we think about and how we talk about pitching. So I'm really definitely looking forward to Carlos's presentation on Saturday. Daniel, what do you look at when you're evaluating pitchers?
outside of my own metric, which I'll talk about actually tomorrow, OLR, which I love, optimal location ratios. I kind of wanted to go outside of those. And the first thing I actually look at, again, I want a stat that kind of gives me a big overview. I call them like canary in the coal mine things, where it tells me something is going on, and then it's on me to go find what is going on. So the first thing I look at is WAR. I know it sounds weird, it's specifically FWAR, but that's a nice aggregate stat. And I have a feeling I'll probably end up actually moving a lot more. I'm starting to familiarize myself with SPX from Carlos Marcano. That may kind of supplant this as that. As I'm familiarizing myself with it, because I love it. It looks great. But for me with WAR, I get a snapshot of, are they finding success? And not just are they finding success, but then it also still throws in, are they throwing a lot of innings? And are they doing this? So suddenly I've got a couple different rabbit holes with every pitcher to go down. So now I start going, okay, so they're getting success, but how? Is it strikeouts? Is it ground balls? So it leads me down that path, but then also being like, so they're throwing a lot of innings. Are they efficient with their innings? Are they not throwing enough innings? Are they, this kind of thing. So I start with WAR, is kind of the first thing I really look at, just to get a good overview of the pitcher. And then I do use K minus walk as well, because I love looking at K percent. I love looking at walk percent, but if I can get one stat that tells me to look at both of them, might as well be more efficient with it. Same thing for CSW. I love looking at CSW, especially after I've looked at, say, either K percent, or again, like if I look at CSW, that's two stats put together, and I can kind of start going, okay, will they get their CSW through swing strike rate? Do they get it through called strikes? And if so, then how does that change how I view that pitcher? Right. One I look at a lot is F strike percent. And what I like about F strike percent, that's a first pitch strike percent, is essentially, I like to see how a pitcher goes about starting an at bat, right? And maybe this is my bias of watching a lot of Cleveland, watch a lot of Guardians games, where that's like their mantra with pitching is like, you start with a strike and then you can do anything for the rest of the at bat. Like you are in control. And it's a really important thing for pitchers, especially if they don't have, say, the more electric stuff or things like that. So that's something, if I'm looking at a pitcher, I'm like, how do you make a leap from one place to the next? Say, in terms of skill, one of the first things I look at is being like, are they throwing more first pitch strikes?
Right.
And then lastly, this is more for individual pitches, but I look at P-Val a lot. Again, it's a lot of times it's a nice indicator of being like, oh, they're finding a little more success with their fastball, because I can see that through the P-Val. And then I dig into how and why from there. So those are kind of my top 5.
There you go. Some great metrics in there for sure. Scott, what about you? What are you looking at when you evaluate pitchers?
I don't. I'm just kidding.
Love it.
I mean, I don't very often. When I do, some of it's the same as the hitters. Obviously, I love strikeout rate and walk rate. Those things, they just play together so well. They tell you a lot about what the pitcher's doing, particularly things that they have better control over. I'll tell you, I don't look at average exit velocity or average launch angle very much. I've just found that those are not as helpful as I want them to be. And they give weird feedback. Like, it'll always tell you that Josh Hader is due to like regress because of how hard he's hit. But that's because like no one ever makes contact. So when they do, it's because they actually found something they could hit, which is rare. I really like, I love the stuff that Eno has done over with Stuff Plus, Command Plus, and Pitching Plus. I just love those, because I'm not a big pitching guy, and I can scout a little bit like Tarek Skubal. I love watching Tarek Skubal. You knew I was going to talk about him.
I knew you were going to talk about him. I figured you'd just start talking about Tarek Skubal's page like you were talking about Akil Badu's.
I know, right? Well, his numbers weren't always as good. But what I do like is normalized stats, because they help me put pieces together. The big thing with Skubal is knowing that like his location often has issues. I see it when I watch the games, but it's hard to get a stat that does this. I know Dan's probably does this well too. When he misses like right in the middle of the plate. So I always wanted, I want to know that guys that miss hardcore, like middle, like when they miss, they leave it in the middle of the plate. It's often going to be young guys like Skubal who are still working on some secondary stuff, have to rely on the fastball too much. Then they throw that fastball. It's supposed to be up. It's a meatball. It's gone. Right. Which takes me to the last stat I wanted to talk about was home run rate. Love looking at home run rate because it really gives you an idea of, it can talk a little bit about luck factors, but you really want to see those spikes in home run rate. I know that Eno has talked about this quite a bit as well. You see those spikes in home run rate. It can help you identify guys who maybe are due for a bounce back. Like they didn't have any home run problems, like their home run rate, but some of their stats just seem off. You're like, oh, that's weird. Or you're like, oh, he had a really good year. Oh, look, because out of nowhere, he started stopping home runs, and I can't find any reason as to why that should be. So it could flip around. So that's the kind of stuff that I look at. But mostly I just listen to other people and look at their cool stats. I like CSW as well, of course, but I loved Eno's normalized stuff because I can make sense of that.
Yeah, normalized stuff is always great.
And Scott, I think the one thing that like I really like with home, that's to go with yours. That's one I love throwing into like either looking at a game log or a home run chart, or sometimes because when you get a percentage stat like that, you talk about like the average stats. When you look at like average exit velocity or things like that, there are times where like you'll see a pitcher who's he seems like he has an elevated home run rate, and then you look and you go through the game log and it's like there's that one game where like he just gave like 4 home runs in a game, and like that's obviously important. You have to factor that in, but you're also like, did it really spike, or did he just have a
did he
crappy day,
lose
or
a
whatever,
pitch?
right?
That's a big one, right? Guys will lose a pitch during the year. They'll lose a feel for it. And certain pitchers are so reliant on one of those pitches in certain counts that they have to switch to a fastball, and all of a sudden guys are crushing it, right? Or some guys, the home runs happen all the time, like Andrew Heaney, right? Like they just happen. Like that home run rate is pretty stable. But
hey, leave Dodgers starting pitcher Andrew Heaney out of this. That's where our rotation's at, baby.
God help you.
I just want to say real quick, Asher, get out of my head. I was about to ask Scott why the Tigers have not taught Tarek Screwball a screwball, because then you could call it Tarek Screwball and it would be fantastic, and that would be all of the pitcher evaluation I would ever need.
I love that just because it's so weird. And one of the things I love about Scooble is just like a lot of the little quirks, like that big high leg kick he's got. Like one of my favorite, I collect baseball cards. One of my favorites is this super fractor of Scooble. Look at that kick.
I like how you had that just within arm's reach. You're like,
would you not?
I know exactly what this is.
If you had that, would you not always be able to reach it as you move about your office? Come on.
You can't see it. Speaking of Chu and his baseball cards, I have it up on my wall. Sent me a Jake Bowers card that he had.
That was hard to let go.
I'm now realizing that I don't know where my Nick Pollock and Alex Fast baseball cards are, but yet they're somewhere around here, and I wish that I had it within arm's reach. I'm sure you do, Scott. There you go. But one other thing I wanted to throw out there, by the way, Tarek Scooble, the very first time I'd ever heard of him was here at PitchCon 2 years ago when he, Daniel Lynch, and I can't remember the third pitcher that we had on. We're doing a talking pitching with Trevor Huth, basically talking about pitching in the minors, learning about pitching in the minors. But it was really cool. It was a really cool experience to have and really just see the insight from like the players themselves who they're coming up, and they were going through dealing with the pandemic as well, trying to stay in shape, be ready for whatever season they might have. It was a really cool experience. Alex Fado, thank you. Pitcher list, whatever that is. Speaking of pitchers, speaking of pitcher list, actually the next thing on my list, because we can't do serious. I can't do serious for a whole hour. I can't. We need to break it up. I want to talk about. There's a lot of us. I know I do for sure. Read the SP roundup. We read the notes when we go on the list. You read the notes. Okay, got to make sure you read them. And there's so many things over however many years now. Nick has been deliriously writing these at 1 a.m. That he's come up with just so many weird phrases. And so I want to just say, what are your top? I wrote top 5. We don't have to do 5. That's a lot. But what's your like top 1 or 2 just absolutely weird Nick Pollock terms that he just throws into an article and just expects you at this point to know? Scott, what are your top ones?
So it's funny because like the one I like the most isn't like funny by itself. It's just that we won't change it and it'll be like this forever. It's the Vargas rule. And I want it to stay so long that name doesn't mean anything anymore, right? Like no one will even know. Like someone in the internet will have to do research one day as to what the heck a Vargas rule is and why we called it that. But we'll all know. And that's what brings us all together, I think. More than anything, we're all just together because Nick says weird stuff and we like to hear him say weird stuff.
We have like our own little collection of inside jokes that we make it to, and our readers know, but also sometimes we're like, we may have to explain who Carlos Vargas is, or Jason Vargas.
Jason Vargas.
Yeah.
And
when it does, it's going to go long.
Right.
When you
Yeah.
explain it, it's going to go long.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
Shout
fun.
out Asher again in the comments mentioning Pitcher Lift, because for those who were at the Pitcher List meetup back in was it July of last year in New York, I thank you, Scott. You have all the memorabilia. I love it. I guess when I called the bar, I called during peak hours and they couldn't hear me say Pitcher List, and I guess they thought, yeah, Pitcher Lift, that sounds like a thing. That sounds like a normal thing that we'd have a meetup for. So yeah, we had Nick's Pitcher Lift meetup. It was absolutely fantastic.
You raise me up. Sorry, that's what I thought of the entire time we were there.
There you go. Dave, what's one of your favorite Nick Pollock-isms?
Probably the one that I use the most, because I write up the streaming catchers article each week, is dangs the day after night games, because it makes a whole lot of sense.
Right.
Because, right, we got the quick turnaround and those catchers aren't always playing. They actually get that day off. And it happens a lot even, so for me, it's something that we actually use outside of, like, when I think of Nick Pollock, the first thing that pops in my head is like the word dope. Like, just, especially for a guy who doesn't curse. And it's like everything is dope and dope.
Everything. He wants to be
everything.
dope. Yep.
It's the
And
first
he
thing
uses
that
it so much that like it is soaked into my vocabulary. Like
Exactly.
I've started saying it.
You're listening to too much like Pitcher List podcasts when you say things are dope.
Yeah, I use dope a lot, and I also ask people what is happening all the time.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I feel like every time I say what is happening, I can just feel I don't know, like I owe a royalty to Nick or something like that. Like there's gonna be some collection sent, like a bill of like, you use that phrase 17 times in January, you owe us $1.70. 10 cents a what is happening.
Sure.
That sounds like a fair conversion rate.
You don't get those bills? I get those. I figured that's why he doesn't take money for the articles. He just keeps getting the royalties.
There you go. Daniel, what about you? What's one of your favorites?
So I don't necessarily have a specific. I mean, I do have some specific phrases I love. Like I love "Careful Icarus" is one of my favorites or whatnot. But my favorite thing that Nick does is in his writing is the bit where he talks in italics to himself. Is one of my favorite things. It makes me laugh every time. I have like this vision of that like the meme with like the Kermit like puppet talking to like the Sith Kermit like puppet. Yep. That is what goes on in my head, but it's Nick in like a Sith outfit, like looking at himself, and like that's how it goes back and forth to me, and I love it. I think that's fantastic.
And it's always him scolding himself. It's always for like writing a bad pun. It's like Nick, this is why you need to go to sleep. He's like, no, I don't. I'm fine. I'm going to keep writing this. And it's just like, Nick, man, you can leave your internal monologue out, but it's perfect. It's amazing. Along those lines, I mean, delirious. Just the deliriousness is my favorite part. Nick, never get enough sleep. Please continue to be delirious. I love how am I supposed to feed my family with this? Because there's certain times when you see something you don't know, you either look it up or you just kind of move past it. And for a long time, I just kind of moved past highest to because it's just a big long acronym that makes no sense. And I'm like, whatever. And then one day I finally looked it up and I was like, this is incredibly dumb and in no way does it need to exist. But the fact that it does, and he's so committed to it, I'm like, I'm on board now. So how am I supposed to feed my family with this, man? You got to get some strikeouts. Shout out, by the way, go to the glossary. There's so much good stuff in there, and there's so much outdated stuff, which just makes it even better. We have references to the Geezer quality start battle from 2016 and 2017. So it goes to show the great and grand history of Pitcher. We might need to include this in Pitcher List orientation. This might need to be a thing now when we have new hires. I'm like, all right, here's the glossary. We're going to do a quiz on this later. Here are the terms you need to know to work here. All right. Let's move on. Let's move back to serious. Let's bring it back. Nick's deliriousness out of the way. Let's talk 2022 fantasy baseball. Whenever the season starts, whatever kind of season we have, whatever, doesn't matter. Let's just talk about some players that you are targeting in drafts or players that you think we should be targeting. And I want to start with my favorite category, a category that I target a lot. And by that, I mean, when other people write about it, I will pick the people that they write about. So I don't have any names for this list, but the top 5 post-hype sleepers. The guys that, someone that comes to mind for me, I don't know if he's a sleeper. I don't know if he's any good, but like a Scott Kingery or a Nick Senzel. Like there was so much hype around these guys like 3 years ago and it didn't work. And now we're over them, but maybe can they capture that magic, a little bit of that magic? So Daniel, who are some of your favorite post-hype sleepers?
So one that really stuck out to me in reading, and I apologize if they're watching, but it first hit me when I was reading an article about someone who was talking about these second half breakouts that they were buying into, that they really liked. And one that really stuck out to me was Josh Bell. Was very, very good in the second half, and like was really solid in the first half in that way of like, you know, kind of that first baseman who like I think I heard the joke that I think it was on Sleep in the Bus, where like every first baseman is basically like the Spider-Man meme pointing at each other right now. But like and he kind of had that first half, but then the second half, I mean, he just put up incredible numbers for what we were expecting from him. So, you know, he had 277 with about 15 home runs over about 71 games, put good RBI and run totals, especially, you know, considering that team wasn't really hitting that well all season. But then on top of it, what I really liked was to see his walk rates get right back up into the elite rates. In fact, they were so good that he actually walked more than he struck out in the second half. And
Wow.
Josh Bell's eye at the plate and kind of that sort of approach has always been sort of one of his hallmarks. And so I was really excited to see that come back, and really to see that eye at the plate sort of come back along with some power. And maybe his like ultimate final form is some form of a more like a Carlos Santana style, like 20 something home runs, tons of walks. You know, maybe that is kind of who Josh Bell is, which would be awesome. But
Great
I
in a
just
points
really,
league.
yeah, right, exactly. But I was very, very impressed with his second half, and so that was one that I was really into.
Okay, Josh Bell, I like it. Might be like a post hype sleeper, because I feel like he had like a second wave. But hey, dude, post hype sleepers can come at any point in your career, so I like that. I mean, you know, every moment is post hype, depending on if you had hype at all. You know, I'm post hype, just post high school basketball hype. Dave, what's one of your favorite post hype sleepers?
The guy I wrote up as a sleeper outfielder, and a lot went on, and part of it is I really want this guy to do well because he had a lot of really terrible things go on last year, and that's Sam Hilliard. All right, so when he started, he was awful. He couldn't hit a high fastball.
That'll do you.
Right, and now with some crackdown, spin rates coming down, who knows what'll happen with high fastballs. But what happened was, you know, he started out decently. The dude he could not make contact, and they sent him down to the minors. Right. And then he goes back. He's actually talked about it. He's making swing changes just to make more contact. Because when the guy makes contact, the ball goes far. He actually hits it very well. The reason I reference it is that a lot of people don't know this, but when he first came up and had success, his father was diagnosed with ALS, and that really weighed on him. And his father passed away in the middle of last year. It's almost like one of these things. When you look at it from then on, his contact got slightly better. He still strikes out a bit. Give him another offseason to work on this swing. He's also going to be in a place where if he can just make more contact, things are going to go really well in that park. I don't see the Rockies bringing anything in, as they're kind of in teardown mode. So
they ain't spending any money.
He basically free in drafts as a late outfielder that you just never know.
It's really difficult to remember that, you know, even when we try to, you know, we look at their numbers and we look at their stats and we just kind of focus on what's on the field. But, you know, these guys are human, and they deal with human stuff off the field. And that can, like, we can say all we want about, hey, like, you know, during the launch angle revolution, just, you know, change your swing, right? Get a new swing path. And first of all, it's not just as easy as just doing
Not
it.
in season, no.
And second of all, that even if you do work on it and do, you know, work on it all off season and you come into the season with a new swing, number one, it's not easy to stick to it. Number two, you've got all kinds of external stuff coming at you that can really mess with your head. And baseball is as much a mental game. Well, I think 90% of the game is mental and the other half's physical, you know, and it's one of those things you really got to be on top of it. Scott, who's a post type sleeper for you? We got Josh Bell, we got Sam Hilliard. You can't mention a Tiger. If there are Tigers on your list, I want a different player.
Fine.
He's scrambling to fill in the rest of the list now.
I'm gonna talk to you about a person that you all know, but I'm just gonna throw it out there. What do you think Joe Adell's strikeout rate was last year, just based on, you know, the general way people talk about him?
80%.
What?
80%.
It was 22.9.
I was gonna guess 22.
Yeah,
it was 22.9 over 140 plate appearances. He did a great job in the minors, really focusing on that plate discipline. Like, the walks still aren't necessarily there, but man, if he gets even close to having like an average walk rate and like a just below 30% strikeout rate, which would be a lot different than what he showed us last year. I think that there's still a lot of power here. There's a lot of athleticism. This is someone who you can target very late in drafts, especially in like a Yahoo format where like hitters just stay around longer because you don't need as many of them. Right. I think that he also looks good as like a fifth outfielder in 10 and 12 teamers. In 15 teamers, you do have, it's like a little bit more worrisome because of the downside, but I still like him late. I love that he could steal maybe, up to 10 bases, hit 25 something home runs, and you pay nothing for him. And if that strikeout rate is anything like what we saw last year, this is not a 200 batting average. It's probably closer to like 240, 250. And in the modern game, that's feasible. That's something you can deal with.
Yeah, that plays for sure. I like Joe Adell a lot as someone on this list because the hype around him was pretty unreal. I think he was named the Arizona Fall League, like the all-star, but like the number one hitter there in like 2019, comes into the 2020 season, and there's no chance he sniffs the major leagues in 2020 if there was a minor league season. But there was nothing else for him to do. And so the Angels weren't playing for anything that year. So they were like, sure, let's have Joe Adell come up and play because playing is better than not playing. And he was so clearly not ready for major league pitching. I mean, just absolutely abysmal in 2020. But, that again, going back to trying to remember these are humans, remember the story, you look back at the numbers and it's hard to remember that. It's hard to remember that this was a guy who should not have been playing in the major leagues if he had any alternative at the time. And so that's hype like wore off real quick for Joe Adell, way faster than I think for a lot of other prospects who have the pedigree that he does. So I love Joe Adell here as a post type sleeper. If he is going as deep as late in drafts as you say he is, Scott, I'm all on board there. Real quick, give me, just without going too in depth, just give me a couple of the other guys on your list. Scott, we'll go back to you.
Well, you said no Tigers, so
you can mention Tigers now. Just don't.
He's still.
No. I won't get in trouble. Just kidding. I will. I'll talk about a guy who is also a former number one pick. I think he was like a 12th overall pick. This is a weird one to talk about as a post type sleeper, but it's Willy Adames. So shortstop is really, really top heavy. This was a former high level prospect. He had great numbers last year. He's posted good numbers before, but it's weird. He's almost post hype because of the hype of Wander Franco, right? Like for the longest time, he was just this guy in Wander Franco's way, right? That's not what he is in Milwaukee. They need him badly. I think he's going to hit in a much better park to hit in. I think he's going to have a lot of good matchups over in Milwaukee. And I think that if you miss out on that, really like the top 8 to 10 shortstops, just keep waiting. Wait. And then pick up Willy Adames later. I think that can be a really useful strategy, especially if it's not as good in like NFBC because of the depth of your roster. But in the more shallow ones, I love that move.
Okay. I like Willy Adames. Dave, what about you?
Yeah, two real quick to hit on. Hunter Dozier started the season with a thumb injury, really zapped his power, strikeout rate. I'm sure he had an issue swinging and playing. It's a little crowded there, so it wouldn't surprise me if he ended up getting moved at some point in the season for some of the youth that they have behind him. But towards the end of the year when he got healthy, final 92 at-bats, he had 14 extra base hits, including 6 home runs and a 270 batting average. So,
wow.
Again, it's a small sample of 92, but you could see a guy who just got healthy and just, needs some time. Next one here is real deep and obscure, but AJ Puck, right? So Oakland is, again, just an absolute sell mode. This guy is not a starter. Don't make him a starter. He only pitched 60 innings again. If you're going to have any use for him, make him your closer. Have him just focus on fastball and slider. He throws one of the most wicked sliders at his, just his range and his height. So just move him into there. I think it'd be an easy way to pick up some really, really cheap saves. Wouldn't surprise me if he takes out Lou Trevino and, finishes the year with like 20 saves.
Yeah, Puck. I like that pick. A couple of deep cuts there. I like him, Dave. Daniel, what about you? Last couple guys for post sleeper.
So one, and I'll admit I took a more liberal take on post hype. I just went with like if they were popular in drafts last year, had a poor year, and now are kind of fallen in drafts. And Love one that's going to sound like a weird pick, but is Trevor Story actually. So I feel like people are suddenly out on Trevor Story a little bit. I mean, he's dropping into like the, we're seeing like in the 3rd, 4th round or somewhere in that range. And well, this is a guy we were taking like the top 6 or 7 picks last year.
Yep.
And I think the thing that's interesting is baseball often is this like big giant random number generator. And so sometimes, you look and say, sometimes you get weird results overall, but like you have to go back and look at the process and see what's changed. And if you start kind of digging into Trevor Story's numbers from last year, not much, nothing really changed. His barrel rates were the same. He basically was right in the same range in a lot of his his plate discipline numbers. A lot of those things I kind of look at to see, was there a major change in what he did. His fly ball rate stayed the same. He could hit a lot more ground balls, but nonetheless, like, there are all these things that sort of say to me, not much changed on what he was doing. And I'm a big process over results guy. And so I feel like he's just going to come back. And obviously there's a little confusion as to depending on where he signs, but it looks like it's going to be like the Yankees. It's going to be like, he's going to end up somewhere good, for him, I think. And so I'm still buying in on Trevor Story putting up good numbers next year. And so that's kind of one of my guys. The other one I had on my list here that I think is really interesting is to go on brand is Aaron Cevalle.
There you go. Gotta talk about a Guardian.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and especially Aaron Cevalle, because anyone who knows me knows I love this guy. But it's really fascinating. So he had, and I think this happens a lot with pitchers. So for those you don't know, I actually spent the past 2 years or so teaching myself how to pitch. And the thing that I find really crazy about it is understanding especially if you're not like a power pitcher or things like that, is how much it's all about throwing in the same way. And like, it's all in your body, right? So when your body isn't right, it's hard to be right, And so in the first half of the season, he threw 97 innings, with about a 3.30 ERA. It was really good. It was really solid. It was pitching lights out, and just wasn't quite a strikeout guy or anything like that, but just really solid, really kind of confused and tricked a lot of hitters. Then he got hurt, missed almost 2 months of the season, about 2 months, a month or so. Comes back and is complete garbage for the last month or so of the season. And we're weighing that last month really heavily, and it's just so hard because if I remember correctly, it was either a shoulder or a leg injury, and it's those are the things you use to pitch.
Yeah.
And so for me, I more heavily weigh that first half, and so that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. So I think he's a guy we should definitely be buying in on.
All right, awesome. A lot of great names there. A lot of people that people should be looking at in their rankings, maybe highlighting them. Maybe don't move them up a whole too much, but guys, you should be kind of keeping a close eye on. I want to just real quick shift from the good side of drafts to the not so fun side. And who are the people that you are absolutely not drafting this year under any circumstances? Dave, who's on your do not draft list?
So I really don't like taking prospects early. So real simple. I don't want Bobby Witt.
Okay.
I'll just be wrong. I don't want Shane Baz. I just don't think he's going to start in the meet. Playing time is real important. I don't like either of those guys. I don't really buy into Verlander coming back and being himself. So that's another guy that I can't see myself. And I'm a big proponent of balance, full-time roto player. So I can't stand taking guys like Mondesi. If there's a question mark with a guy, I'll just pass. And then real quick, just the injury. I have no clue what's going on with Max Muncy. That's another guy that it's just you cross off. I don't care where he's going.
Okay. A lot of prospect aversion and injury aversion there for you, Dave. I understand that. And especially because it can be such a headache. There's nothing worse than drafting like a Verlander or a Muncy or someone like that, or along the same lines, like a Bobby Witt, and losing a month and a half of a bench spot. Or, not putting someone on your IL because you're like, oh no, but he's going to be up or he's going to come back. And it's like, you just handcuffed yourself for what? Maybe they turn out to be great, especially but again, you handcuffed yourself. And if we're, depending on the league size, that handcuff may come at a very, very high cost. So definitely can see that. Scott, who are you absolutely not drafting this year?
It stinks because I really like him and I like a lot of things I've seen from him, but it's actually right now Seiya Suzuki. So I have nothing against Seiya Suzuki. Let's be clear. I don't want you necessarily to move him down your boards. He's just in a part of the draft often and in a part of my outfield ranks that I just feel there are so many options. And as people continue to reach a little earlier and little earlier for a Seiya Suzuki, I'm going to keep waiting and get like an Avi Garcia and Akil Baddoo. I can get these guys generally sometimes later or at least similar. Yeah, I said it again. It's fine. It's cool, right? He tends to meet my, like, I don't often need what, say, a Suzuki can provide at that point in the draft. I'm usually all set on things like power at that point, or at least in a place where I'm not really reaching for it. I'm often probably looking a little more for speed or runs scored or something like that. So I'm likely going to pivot away from, say, a Suzuki at that time. Again, if I have a need, like, he's not completely crossed off my board. It's just so hard with so many options where I know what team they're on. I know sort of what they're going to do. I just have so much more confidence in other guys in that same price range that it's going to be hard to pull the trigger on Suzuki unless he's somehow the last one standing, which I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, and outfield is so much beauty in the eye of the beholder, because I think you get to a point in outfield ranks where it's just like a big conglomeration of dudes that are like, you know, they could be good, they could be not good. You know, this is your third outfield spot, your fourth outfield spot, maybe utility spot. And some people you got to go and get your guy. And sounds like, Scott, for you, Seiya Suzuki is not your guy. Daniel, who's on your do not draft list?
So I shared a couple in here, like, you know, with Dave and Scott, and like Mondesi is one that I don't like then having to know I need to plan whatever injury replacement I need probably for him at this point or whatnot. Or having to have that in the back of my head is something I don't like because it dictates so much of the rest of my draft. Or I'd rather get like if I need stolen base, to get like a Myles Straw later on, or you know, something like that. But most of mine always end up, because I'm not a huge do not draft guy. I'm usually more of it depends on the price guy. And some of these guys just come at a price I don't love, like Josh Hader. He's just too expensive, right? You know, Tyler O'Neill's one that's really kind of got me going. He does not make enough contact, and that's like, I can't imagine a guy who makes something like 70% contact hitting 280 again. That just doesn't work for me. When I can get the same kind of power from, you know, several rounds later from like a Franmil Reyes or you know, maybe a Jorge Soler or a Kyle Schwarber, like that kind of thing. So Tyler O'Neill, very confused about like where everyone's going with Dalton Varsho right now. I think he's bad, but like a catcher is kind of putting up like stats. Like it kind of, I don't know. I don't get it, but someone's going to have to explain it to me.
If Isaiah Kiner-Falefa can get drafted, and who is the Reds? Kyle Farmer can get added in deep leagues because they play other positions and are labeled as a catcher. And damn it, Dalton Varsho should go first over. No, maybe not first over, but he, you know, playing in the outfield and having, you know, stolen bases. If it's a points league, I understand maybe, you know, Varsho's not the guy, but in a roto or a head-to-head league where you can get 15 plus stolen bases from your catcher, I definitely understand that. By the way, I noticed Spore in the chat jumping in about Dalton Varsho. I'm surprised that he didn't immediately jump in when you had Tyler O'Neill as someone that you're saying is going too high in drafts. Because I know Sport is very out on Tyler O'Neill. And by the way, thank you guys for giving me all the ammunition that I need to give our PL Plus members when I inevitably get you in a blind draft at some point, and I can tell them exactly who you guys don't want and when you don't want them, so I can just get you guys as tilted as possible. Fantastic. We are closing in at the end of this roundtable. We've got about 6 minutes left before Nick Pollock starts ranting and rambling about his top 100 starting pitchers in 50 minutes, something that he did last year. I'm not sure why he was like, yeah, let's do that again, because he, you know, it's quite the feat. It's sprinting a marathon, and I highly recommend sticking around to watch it. But I want to ask you guys, what are some of the PitchCon panels and presentations you're looking forward to? And before, I want to just get the best ones out of the way because I want them for myself. First of all, tomorrow at 1:00 Eastern, Daniel, you're giving a presentation on optimal location ratio. Fantastic article you just wrote. Everyone go check it out so you have a little bit of baseline understanding before. Unless, Dan, are you just going to read the article? We can do like a nice little time with Daniel Ford.
Yeah, I mean, just I'll print it out and have it like a book now. No, it's more going to be about how we, you know, the primer, the article I put out, and I'll post that on Twitter and share it out today so everyone can kind of take a look at it if they want to. It's more of like how the stat was made and kind of like get the nuts and bolts, you know,
awesome.
Of how I created it, why it's reliable, all of those things. What I'm going to do in the presentation is more about now, okay, how do we use it? How do we evaluate pitchers using it? So
awesome. So make sure to read the article, and then tomorrow at 1:00 Eastern, watch Daniel's presentation. Tomorrow at 4:00, we have FSWA finalist Scott Chu back again to talk about evaluating hitters using rolling charts, which if you were here earlier, you already got like the first half of his presentation. So I guess you can just show up to the second half tomorrow, probably, unless I think, Scott, you're gonna have plenty of visual aids, right? Everyone wants to see those lovely visual aids.
I mean, we're gonna look at some rolling charts.
If that's exactly what I'm looking for. Fantastic.
We are gonna do that.
And
I mean, I am. What you guys all look at is, your problem, but I'll be looking at them.
Speaking of FSWA finalists, I have to mention one more time the FSWA finalist for Baseball Writer of the Year, Carlos Marcano. He's going to be discussing his pitching aggregator specs. That was, by the way, nominated for Research Article of the Year. So that's like a double whammy of like FSWA goodness. That's going to be Saturday at 1:00 Eastern. If you're like me and you have absolutely no idea how to evaluate pitchers on your own, and you just go to pitcherlist.com and click on the list and let that do it for you, specs is a great way to get all of that data in one place. Dave talked about it earlier today of just kind of having everything in one kind of easy to digest place. But what about you guys? What are you looking forward to? What presentations are you excited to see this week?
Real fast, I'm looking at later today. I think we've got the data of baseball with some really great people that I follow. The data mining is one of our favorite things to do as baseball analysts. That one's going to be just great. I know, like, one I'm really looking forward to is Todd Zola is going to try and disprove max exit velocity. Right? Todd's a very smart guy, so it's going to be well thought out and done really nicely. And I had like day 3. One of my favorite podcasts, I like Scott's a lot. I listen to that one too, is Dugout Study Hall. I think that one is wildly underrated as one of the better ones we have in the podcast network. So I know they're on day 3 at some point, but that's going to be a good one too. And obviously Carlos.
Yeah. So Dugout Study Hall closes day 3. That's Friday night, starting at 9:00 Eastern. That's Matt Goodwin and Alexander Chase. Absolutely a great podcast. Matt really plays the everyman to Alexander's, just absolute brilliant mind. So it's a really good kind of helping people like me understand the deeper dives of baseball. Todd Zola's tomorrow at 5:00 Eastern, and then that data of baseball today at 1:00. That you mentioned some of the best minds in baseball there. I mean, Ariel Cohen and Derek Carty, two guys who have amazing projection systems that they are proponents of. Jeremy Frank, who I believe is now working for the Houston Astros front office, so that's pretty cool. And then our own Jeremy Siegel, data scientist here. So we've got some really, really smart baseball minds at 1:00 today. Scott, what's a PitchCon presentation you're looking forward to that's not your own?
You keep taking away all the stuff I want to talk about. No,
making you dig deep, Scott.
Yeah, I know, right? Obviously there's a ton of cool stuff. I definitely want to check out as many of the roundtables as I can, simply because you get so much knowledge on so many, like, from so many people. So I always love those. Actually on Thursday, tomorrow, towards the end of the day, there's actually everything to know about scouting baseball. And we have some really cool folks to come in and talk about scouting. I think it's one thing that the more people play fantasy, the more almost everybody eventually gets to a point where they say, I really wish I could scout better. Really wish that I could watch a guy and know what the heck I'm looking for. And I've learned so much being part of our team that I really just want to see I want to see how other people can do it too. So that's where I'll be at. I'll be looking a lot at that scouting.
Looking forward to that one. Kimball Crossley's on that, and he is as interesting a character as he is a good scout. So definitely someone to watch out for. Chris Blessing, Jeff Pontus, and Trevor Huth as well. Some great people. Daniel, real quick, what are some presentations you're looking forward to?
So you guys all checked off half of my list here, but also I don't know if you mentioned it earlier, Myles, but if you do like some fun, if you want to have, I know a lot of these are gonna be serious, but if you want to have some fun, you got to check out the blind co-manager draft recap. It's a hoot. It's a ton of fun. That's Myles's, sort of mind child. And it's just awesome. It's so much fun. Everyone's just kind of going nuts. It's a really fun way to do fantasy and have just have some fun. So definitely, I'm going to check that one out. And I think everyone should. I'm looking forward to, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Going through and looking at some of the other ones I find really interesting, like I really think the Twisted State of Baseball roundtable sounds really interesting to me, as I feel like we are at such a crossroads in our sport. that it's trying to kind of see where we're going and where we can go and all this thing really was something that really spoke to me as I kind of struggle with that a lot. So that was one that really came to me. Understanding cutting edge pitching metrics from Alex Chamberlain was one that
Smart
it's
guy.
kind of like, yeah, you take one of those guys like Eno and Alex, and these are some of the guys who kind of like really molded how I look at baseball and statistics and how I
Right.
approach the game. And so obviously, that one really speaks to me. So that was definitely one that stood out to me as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for checking out staying with us through the opening roundtable. For all of you who just joined because you're here to see Nick talking about 100 pitchers in 50 minutes. That is, he'll be here soon. I'm sure, just waiting in the wings for me to shut up so that he can jump in. But no, I mean, thank you guys so much for being here, for being a part of this every year. It's always a ton of fun.
Don't forget to donate either.
Yes, absolutely.
Dave, my man, thank you so much. Yeah. If you're on our website, like I think on this side, if you go like below Scott Chu's head, there's like a big green button that says contribute, donate. Half the proceeds go to Feeding America. It's just an absolutely great cause. And then if you're on Twitch, head over to pitcherlist.com/PitchCon and find Scott Chu. And then just below his head, there's a big green button that says contribute. So it'd be really fantastic. Would definitely, and help us get to some of our goals. We want to give away some amazing, who doesn't want a Tyler Glasnow signed baseball?
Right.
There's a lot of other cool stuff too, but that one always stands out to me because what a cool piece of merch. So definitely something that I highly recommend doing and being a part of. But thank you all so much for being here. And I don't know, maybe is Nick
you wouldn't stop. I had to let you keep going. You're doing such a good job.
I was worried, Nick, that you were like frantically writing you were at like pitcher 90.
Oh, I mean, I am.
You're like finishing the script.
I'll
and
explain
I'm just like,
in a moment.
Let me
But really,
give
that was
time.
a great panel, guys. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I'm really excited for the the next 4 days ahead, and you guys have set it up perfectly. So, thanks for being here. We got to move on. But thank you guys.